Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I'm going to make my Christmas cards, and I thought you might want to craft along with me. Maybe you are also trying to get your Christmas cards made. I just want to let you know, I don't know how old this stuff is. I know this company's out of business, so you don't need to substitute, use what you have. So what I have first is a stack of smooth white cardstock that I'll be stamping on. I have, these are probably my favorite Christmas sentiments. I like them because they're just kind of big and blocky. They're from Craft Emotions. I don't know if they're still available or not, but you can find something similar. I have, as far as image stamps, I've got these from Ink and Do. This is, I just wanted something that would do a lot of heavy lifting, basically. So we've got the really strong graphics, and then we've got some words and some music and other things superimposed. So I'm just going to stamp these in like my VersaFine clear inks. I have a bunch of pigment inks in the tray in front of me. I'll just pull out a couple so you can see. You know, I just got a variety of inks here. I'm going to stamp them in one color, and then I'm going to use holographic clear embossing ink over it just to give it a little bit of sparkle. And I've got this set here. I have this set as well, which I thought would also work really well. And then I've got this set, which somebody gave this to me, and I just thought it was kind of cute. I like the sentiments in here, so I've got that one for sentiments as well. I've got a bunch of card bases already cut and scored to make my cards on. I'm just going to do A2 because it's easy. I have a bunch of envelopes. You know, no need to reinvent the wheel here. I've got some glitter cardstock. I think this was $5 a pad at, or maybe it was buy one, get two free or something at Michael's. So I figured I'll just use like the reds, blues, purples, greens maybe, and I would coordinate my stamping to that. I got my score pal here. I might use it, I might not. I'll probably use it when I fold these and score these, but I've already scored them. I just need to fold them and then score down the crease. And then for an embellishment, all I have, all I'm planning to do for embellishing, and this may change, but I've got some rhinestones, and I haven't used this brand before. This is Mr. Pen, and I hope I can get these open. They just came. Yep, they'll actually open pretty easily, and then it comes with tweezers and a little pickup tool, so I'm probably going to use those for I might use some glue dots or something. I don't know, for sticking them down. I don't have the best luck with liquid glue and like rhinestones and sequins and things like that, so I'm going to have to go hunt down a different adhesive for that than just my regular bottle of glue. But that's where I'm going to start off anyway. I'm going to make a few and then make sure I like the design, and then I'll come back and I'll show you the step-by-step how to do it. I've done a bunch of stamping already. The first embossing powder I tried actually had some white particles or something. Then I found a holographic. I don't know if that will show up on camera or not, but it's got a really cool, like, it shifts, has different colors in it. And depending on the color ink you use, these are both the same color reds, you get kind of a cool effect. It goes from purple to green to gold. I did a lot with those reds, but I did with this blue here. I used these colors because they match the glitter colors pretty well. So I also got this kind of like dark green on these trees. I'm really hoping that the graphics, because they're so bold, that they will do some heavy lifting. As far as the card design, this one is kind of pretty too, like kind of like a dark purple. And then I've got this more of an earthy green called Shady Lane. I want to try this one with that same embossing powder. Now you can use embossing tinsel, which is like a glittery powder. You've probably seen me use that before in cards. Or just a clear that's got, like, this one's called clear holographic. Oh, here's the hologram embossing powder by Fun Stamps. Probably not still in business because a lot of my embossing powders are old, and I've only had one problem, one powder that's ever given me a hard time, and that was one that had been sent to me, shared with me, and it was sent in a baggie, and I think there's something about the baggie that it was stored in that made it go off because it never heated right. But anything that I've kept in their original containers, I have never had a problem with. So, in case you're wondering if your embossing powder can go bad. It's not too humid in Maine. My friend was living in Louisiana that shared that embossing powder with me, so maybe it had to do something with humidity, but that's it. This is a really pretty stamp, too. So I'm going to stamp up a whole sheet and then emboss it all at once. And that's that method. Ooh, I don't think I got enough ink on there. That method has been working really well for me. It's been staying wet long enough. And I have the radiator going in here, so it's kind of dry. It's kind of, you know, that dry winter heat. So if it's staying wet long enough for me, it should be fine for you. These inks are the VersaFine Clair. I don't think I have quite enough room for that. You know what? I'm also going to do this holly in that color. So, might as well. But I don't think I have quite enough room to do that another row of those trees, but I definitely could do this holly a few times. I want to turn it this way so I can use the bottom of the page to help me line up. Now the first time, these are the first time I've used these stamps, I think. Maybe I've used a Santa before. So I often find the first time I use a stamp, sometimes it doesn't want to stamp very well. Then it works fine the second time, but if you still can't get the ink to stick very well, you can go over it with an eraser, or you can use a fine sandpaper like an emery board on it. Gotta make sure I have room to cut these out too. I am working fairly quickly because I don't want to tempt fate. The VersaFine Clair does dry a little bit quicker than other pigment ink pads, but any pigment ink should really work fine for this. And hopefully I have enough space. So now what I'm going to do is sprinkle on some embossing powder, and you want to do this over a folded piece of paper so you can put the excess back in the jar. And you probably have to like do that a couple times. I don't know if you can see. I put it up high and then I just kind of let it slide down, but I'm going to do that over here so I go over the paper. And you will have, you know, it's not all going to be contained. You're going to end up with glitter on yourself and whatnot all over your room a little bit. So that's another thing. You just want to kind of keep that in mind. I mean, maybe some people are neater than I am, but when you're doing a full sheet like this, it is a little messier than just doing a small panel because it will go off the edge a little bit. Just want to make sure you've got a good coating on everything. Since it is a clear powder, except for the sparkle, I don't have to worry if I have excess in the background. So let's go ahead and put this back in the jar. It's such a pretty embossing powder. I had to test a couple to make sure I had one that truly was clear. And so it's a little tricky when you're heating this up because you can burn it, and if you burn the embossing powder, what happens is it's not shiny. It like sinks into the paper and you lose the holographic image if you overheat it. Now, I mean, I've got a lot of like excess powder there, but I think it's actually going to be pretty. It's going to look like the cardstock has a little glitter to it, so I am not worried about brushing off the excess. So the nice thing about the ones that are truly clear as opposed to a tinsel, it's really easy to see when it's melted because it looks, especially if you're using a darker ink, it looks darker. Okay, so there you can see the effect on that one. I'm just going to bring it up to the camera, hopefully. I have so many lights in here, it's hard to see. See that? Alright, I'm going to heat the rest of these, and then we'll go on to the next step. But do all your stamping and embossing at once, because if you're making a lot of cards, you want to do it assembly line style to make the most of your time. Alright, I have stamped about a bazillion of these, and I'm just trimming them out. I've got like, I feel like I've got this grit of glitter on everything. I do think I embossed them enough though for everything to be locked down for the most part. But yeah, just trim them out, stack them up, and then I'm going to take a break because, telling you what, right now I'm about ready to go buy a box of Christmas cards. These will be cute though, I think. They'll at least be as pretty as what you can buy. This, actually no, that one, I was thinking, is this like an example of one that burned? They all have some pretty properties, I think. It's funny how the hologram kind of shows up differently on over different inks. But I think they're pretty, and I have glitter paper that's going to look good with them. I just got a few more to trim out, and yeah, I'll touch back with you probably tomorrow, and we'll carry on with this project. These are going to be such simple cards, too. That's the thing. These are going to be so simple, and I'm spending so much time because there's so many of them. It can feel a little disappointing. Did you know it was going to be a therapy session when we make our Christmas cards? You never know what you're going to get. I decided I would stamp my background panels because that way I don't have to scrounge around for Christmas paper. I don't like a lot of the Christmas paper that comes out, so I only find paper I like every couple of years. And I'm making a big batch of the same type of card today, so I just wanted to make sure that you know, I didn't have to scrounge. So I've got my pre-folded card bases. Actually, I have a stack of ones that I made. I'm folding them as I go. And then I'm just going to press this down. This is a wood block stamp. I believe it's from Hero Arts, but I'll check in a second. And it's dictionary definitions. And the reason I'm using this is because on one of the little stamp sets I had, there's a definition of the word Mary, and it looks like a dictionary definition, and I thought this would be really cute. So I'm starting off with a dictionary page. Now, this is not a Christmas stamp. I will use whatever. And don't worry, it's not quite big enough to cover the background. I'm doing it in a gray. I'm not worried about it being perfect. Then I'm going to take this other stamp here, another pattern background. This is snowflakes. I think the snowflakes are from Darkroom Door. And I'm going to ink it up in blue, so I'm using gray and blue. You can use whatever colors you want that are going to go with your panels. Just make sure you've got it good and inked. And because this is just about the right size for this, I do have to be careful when I stamp it down and just try to make sure I line it up. My head might get in the way, so I do apologize, but I just want to make sure I have it fairly well lined up. And I love these big mounts because when you're doing backgrounds, it's really easy to get a good impression. Now, I didn't stamp this perfectly. You can see I've got a area there where it didn't stamp, but I love how it's overlapped there. I think it just gives it, it's so much nicer than just having one pattern, I think, just doing this kind of overlap. And there, if I don't stamp it perfectly, then I'll just kind of grunge up the edges a little bit. Nobody will know. Isn't that great? So here's one that I stamped pretty perfectly right there. And these are going to go with this snowman background. I also have some glitter paper in there, but I got the backgrounds for that. For all these green ones here, I did the same thing, but I used a teal. So I've got all those there, and you'll see. I just think with a holographic, it just looks really nice with that teal. You know, we're still, I mean, very basic stamping here. So now what I want to do is I want to change it up a little bit. I'm going to keep the background here, but I am going to go with a swirl design. So I'm going to set this ink pad aside. I'm going to just wipe off the snowflakes. I might use the snowflakes again. I'm just using a wet rag here because this is a little too big to clean in my baby wipe little DIY stamp cleaning pad that you've probably seen me use before. And I'm just going to set this aside because I might want it later. I'll show you what stamps I chose for backgrounds. I just grabbed a stack of different ones. These big 6" by 6" ones are from Impression Obsession. They're the cover a card ones. I love this flourish. This is really great for doing this technique. I also have a plaid. I've got some like insertia sweater pattern here. I've got just a regular stockinette stitch sweater pattern. I thought those would be really cute. I'm not sure if I'm going to use them all, but I definitely wanted to use this flourish. So I'm just going to set that down, and then I'm going to line my Mega Mount. I'm going to call it a Rock-a-Block. That's a different company. That's this is a Rock-a-Block. It's not quite big enough for my 6 by 6 ones. I really like this Mega Mount. I paid $25 for this, but it was a great investment. I might need to use a glue stick on this because it's not wanting to cling very well. I know, great advertisement for that, right? Doesn't want to work right now. That's right. I need to wash this. If your thing stops getting sticky, just take it to the sink, use a little dish soap and water and wash it, or just use a glue stick and wash it later. That's what I'm going to do. But generally what happens is, you know, it picks up glitter or embossing powder or dust, and then it just doesn't want to stick very well. But a little glue stick will save the day. Okay, so I was thinking for these reindeer, it would be cute to have, again, the newspaper background, but then have like a flourish. And I think I'll do the flourish in, I'm going to try the darker purple. We'll see how that looks. But again, we're going to start off like we were, just by using the gray. Because you know what? I don't want this to be really, I just want this to suggest the newsprint background, but if I accidentally stamp something upside down, I don't want it to show up too much. And I'm going to fold and grab my card base. I've scored everything, so I'm just folding it off camera on top of the nice clean stack because I don't want to get ink on the background. Now, because this is just a little bit bigger than the stamp block, by the way, I said I'd tell you who this is. Is this Hero Arts? Huh, made in China, whatever it is. Definitions background, Delta. It's a Delta stamp. Not Hero Arts. Their stuff's made in the United States, I think. I don't know where I got this. Probably one of the big box craft stores. And then you just rub your hand over it and you get a great impression every time. But if it's not perfect, it doesn't matter because we're going to be doing the layering stamp background. That was not too bad, but it's not perfect. doesn't matter. All right, so for this, I think I will use, let's try this purple. This is called Monarch. I'm using the VersaFine Flare. You can use any brand you want. It could be dye, ink, could be pigment. It doesn't really matter. It's whatever you have handy. You definitely want to use a pigment ink when you're doing the embossing, though, because you need that time and that sticky ink to hold the embossing powder. Just give it a good coating, and then just rock that right over, and that gave me a beautiful, beautiful effect. There, and then we can look and see how both of these, now see, that's the same color. One has a holographic powder and one doesn't. Let's look at this with the light pink, because I might want to swap them. I might want to do this more pinky purple on that and do more of a, this color under the more purpley one, because I think that's kind of boring. I think I'd rather have this ink underneath for that one, so that's probably what I'll do. I'm going to do some different versions for these different, these different, like the plaid might look really cute under this Santa Claus, or I might do the snowflakes, I'm not sure. But I'm just going to play, and I'll show you those backgrounds when we get to putting the cards together. I really like this background, so I wanted to show it to you really quick. I'm starting off with a dark brown on the definition block stamp, and I'm just going to put my paper down on that. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. I've made so many backgrounds today. It's cray-cray. Alright, so we've got our definition. Then I can leave that right there. Then I'm going to use this plaid. Isn't that kind of cool? That's actually Rubbernecker. I thought it was Impression Obsession, but this is Rubbernecker. They're slightly smaller than the cover of cards. I think they're like 5.5 by 5.5, and this particular plaid and the Impression Obsession cover cards are 6 by 6, and it is a lot easier to do it with a 6 by 6 because you have to be right on the money with this, or it's not gonna. You'll just have a little bit that you'll go off the edge a little bit. Doesn't really matter, honestly, that much, but just FYI. And the nice thing about these rocket blocks here, if you're not sure if you pressed it down well enough, you can rock it back and it doesn't create a problem. So there we've got that one. Now I'm going over with this kind of like an olivey green colored ink. I don't know the names. I don't stamp enough to memorize my ink pad names, and I'm not like, it doesn't matter to me what brand I have as long as it works good. And then I'm just going to rock over with this one. And this technique, actually, I've got to give credit, is one I learned from the Impression Obsession demo booth at a stamp show that I went to. There's a lady that does this demo. I wish I could remember her name, but she works for Impression Obsession. But isn't that pretty? I think that is so Victorian looking and just lovely. And so sometimes three work really well together. And I mean, that's what I did for those vintage looking Santas. I will mat that with some glitter paper. I'm intending to. Who knows? You know, I might change my mind tomorrow. But this is the prettiest background yet, I think. And I just love that classic text plus kind of like earthy green and kind of, I don't know if it's a Christmas red or almost like a tomato red. I just really love that vintage look. But I wanted to share that with you. Look in your stash. Do you have a text stamp? Do you have a plaid stamp? Do you have a swirly stamp? It doesn't matter the brand. Just grab those stamps, try layering them up, and see how they look. Alright, I thought I'd share with you the process so far. I'm just kind of putting them on some glitter cardstock and adding some eyelash yarn for a little bit of texture. We'll pull it together. I know it might look a little gaudy right now, but I've got plans. I've got hope. I didn't do a test card, so this is a little weird because it's kind of like, yeah, I'm just hoping that everything looks good as I'm going along, but I'm cutting like all the pieces because there's like no turning back. These cards are going out the way they come regardless. So basically I'm using some hot buy paper and I didn't buy anything new to make these cards. I'm using some of this hot buy paper that I picked up at Michael's. Oh, I don't know, it was maybe last year? I don't know, they have these sales all the time, and I think it was like buy one get two free, or I don't know, some deal like that. And then I'm going to cut these apart. I'm using some pretty heavy-duty tape because glitter can be difficult to stick on the glitter paper. This glitter does not leave, it doesn't seem like it sheds, which is nice. I am still getting little bits of holographic glitter around. And then like if it's not perfect, which most of these are not, you actually have some time to remove it. I may have to blast this with a little bit of heat just to make sure that the adhesive sticks really well, because the glitter is a little weird, but I like that I can reposition. So basically I'm doing that for all of these different pieces. Then I'm taking this punch here. It's by Marvi Uchida. It's they probably don't make it anymore, but it's this little notching punch, and you could easily take scissors and notch out edges, but I'm just punching each corner like this. You have to make sure it's centered up there pretty well. You probably find these on like eBay or Etsy used. And this is such a simple punch that it can cut through the glitter paper. I don't know, like I don't think a really detailed punch would cut through the glitter paper very well. Although I do have a pretty little scalloped one that I might try if I get bored of using this. And then I'm taking some eyelash yarn, because again, I like to use what I have. I think baker's twine, metallic string, well, metallic really wouldn't show up on the glitter too well, I don't think. But I'm just using what I have, using, you know, some colors, Christmassy colors. I'm just trying to make everything somewhat interchangeable so I don't have to rethink everything, reinvent the wheel for every step of this. And what you do here with this little, and you could do the little notches yourself with scissors. So what you do, I just kind of stick the ends of one of these fibers on the back, and then I'm just going around. So you kind of hook it, and you can go around like this, or you could, another way to do it is actually to crisscross them if you want it in a little bit further. So kind of go around like that. Probably have a couple different examples. I like it like this better though, because it gives you a little bit more of a border, and then it's not so close to the edge, it's not as likely to slide off. Especially with the eyelash yarn because it's thicker. But I just think that's kind of, I don't know, I like it. It's kind of like Santa's whiskers. And then I'm just gonna snip this, and this is enough adhesive on there to stick it to one of the card bases. And then I'll add my sentiment later. But I'm just, you know what, I'm just pushing it down, and like, yeah, that's where it's gonna be. Because when you're making batch cards, you don't want to be too fussy. You just want to kind of just make a choice. You got to be decisive and just go for it. I think they're kind of cute so far. We're not done yet, but that's where we're at. Now I'm going to do the some of the sentiments. So I've got the card bases all stamped. I've got the focal points on them. I did do some baker's twine on some of these. On some of them I didn't do anything, so I thought it was enough with just the glitter. So now we're going to do some sentiments. And yes, I did cover up a lot of that background that we spent time stamping, but it's just practice and makes you a better stamper. So don't worry about that. But then again, I mean, maybe you don't want to bother stamping the background if you're covering that much of it. That's totally up to you. Like I mentioned, the whole time I've been working on this, I think I mentioned, I really didn't have a concrete plan about what I was doing, but I just decided to just kind of go full steam ahead and see what kind of came of it. Now I put my head over the paper when I do it so I can line it up. These are just offcuts from 5x7 cards. I keep them handy in a little kitchen kind of drawer organizer. These are all just little offcuts, and they're really handy for when I got to do sentiments, and then I will use up a lot of these. So the way I'm stamping them here is so I can cut them out easily with my paper trimmer, so they're all kind of like lined up. And I've got 74 cards made, so I don't know how many I have on here. It would be 9 times however many strips I have, but then I'll just be able to trim these out really easily for my card base. I'm using waterproof ink, this Ranger Archival. That way I won't have to heat set it or anything. I won't have to emboss it. I feel like there's enough with the holographic embossing powder on the focal point that I don't need to do this for the sentiment. And yeah, I might do a few more bolder sentiments like these for some of the images if I feel like I need it. But I'm going to see how far these take me. That's from this stamp set here with the penguins. I'm not sure who makes this stamp set, so if you know, let me know in the comments below. But it's really cute. Yeah, it's very cute. Somebody gave it to me. So giving it a sniff. I think it stamps really well. I can't tell if it's silicone or if it's... I think it's silicone. It's probably from Michael's or something. Anyway, we're gonna keep carrying on, I'll let you know when I do something else. I want to show you what I mean about cutting these apart in case it wasn't apparent. The way that I stamp these, I stamped them so I could just use my paper trimmer and trim them into strips like this. And by the way, I just counted them. I'll have 108, so I have plenty. So I can, any ones that got a little not perfectly stamped, I can get rid of them. And then I'll just either I could take my scissors and just trim them, because that's a short span to trim. Or like if it's something like the middle one where I have a little extra space if I want to, I can do a little V-notch. So you could either use a die for this, but I think doing this many, trimming them by scissors is going to be much quicker. Using your paper trimmer and scissors, you can do a little V-notch like that. I mean, or you can just freehand it. Doesn't really matter. I think I like just the plain straight cut, and then I can mat it with scraps of my glitter paper if I want to, or just ink the edges. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, but I'm just going to trim these out. You know, just keep on going forward. Don't let analysis paralysis get you down when you are batch card. Just push forward. Remember, the people you're sending these cards to want to get a card from you. They don't care if it's using the stamps that just came out last month, that they're using the hottest products, the hottest paper. They don't care. What they care, they don't care if anything is perfectly straight. They care that you sent them something that you made from your heart. That's really going to make their day. So just push perfection out the door and have fun and just move forward. Always forward when you're doing batch cards anyway. I'll see you at the next step. I found the little strips worked well for most of the cards. Any of the cards where I had enough space at the bottom to put them in. I didn't want to put them down the side on some of my bigger cards, so I had to think of some alternate things. I didn't have enough space here, and I didn't want to overlap any of the designs, so what I did was I had this little postmark stamp, and I'm stamping this directly on the card base. Now if I make a mistake, I do have I could stamp something and punch it out and put it over it, but I think this is a pretty easy one to do. So I'm going to do this for my reindeer cards. All right, just checking back in. How have you been? It's been like 3 years since we started this project. One thing I love about Christmas cards is that I will go back and, because when I make Christmas cards, I don't buy anything new for my cards. I love to go back and look at the things that I've collected over the years and bring out those favorites. So here are some of the stamps that I've loved for, let's see how old this one is. 2002 Personal Stamp Exchange. I really love this stamp because it's a sentiment, but it's also an image, it's imagery, and it's easy to trim out. So I just stamped it with I used 2 different shades of blue, so I'd have a couple different options. And I just trimmed it out with straight scissors. That easy. And I love that it can just go on a card. It can overlap. It's small. It gives you a sentiment. I really like that. I showed you the postmark on the last card. I also have this one that was from a set from Stampin' Up! Back in 2006. It's Holiday Hello, I think, or 2008, 2006. This was it was a series of circle postmarks, and there's different occasions for them. And I really like it because you can punch it out with a 1-inch punch if you decide you want to punch it out, or you can stamp it on like I did with the December 25th stamp. This one was from Inkadoo. I think it was from the Dollar Bins, or maybe it was from a set. I don't remember, but I just really like that stamp. And this one here, I think this was also from a set. I don't remember the brand, but I love that it's square and it has a lot of shadow areas, so you don't need to color. You have a sentiment, you have a graphic image, and you can cut it out with straight scissors really easily. So think about that when you are, batch making cards. I just love being able to go through, I only go through my Christmas stamp binders once a year, and it's fun to find those old treasures and, reimagine them in different ways. And sometimes somebody will give me a set of stamps, or I'll find a set of stamps at a thrift store during the year. It'll be Christmas themed, so I put it in my Christmas binder, and oftentimes I kind of forget about it. So then when I go back and I'm pulling out things to make my cards, I find these little treasures that I totally forgot about. So it's just fun. Because if you're getting ready to make some cards, we're already into December. It's really too late to order something online, and in the amount of time that you would have to drive to the store, pick out what you're going to get, buy it, I mean, that's precious time that you could be using making your cards. That said, this is the day 3 or 4 on these cards. Not full days, but I'm puttering around. I have no idea how much time I've spent, but see how easy these are to cut out because you just do straight scissors. I think it's kind of fun to get back to hands-on too and not have to use all the fancy tools. Anyway, I'm going to take these and I cut extra and then I'll just store them. This was like, I don't know, some frozen thing from Trader Joe's, but I like the container because then I can keep these little tidbits handy. And I can always use the leftovers on tags or put them in a little pouch for cards next year. So I think I'm either going to do a dark or a light one. I don't know. I have plenty. I have like 9 of these different cards. So I'm basically just gonna glue one of these sentiments down like that. Easy peasy. These cards, the tree ones, were a little boring. I didn't do a wide border with the fibers on them because they were so tall and I thought they would go over the edge of the card. So here's what we're gonna do with these. We are gonna take some other yarn. This is just some, I don't know what you wanna call it, some sort of specialty fiber. I think it's like, I think it's been called a flagged yarn or something. It's a novelty yarn. Anyway, I got rid of a lot of my yarn, but I did keep the novelty stuff because it's fun to put on cards. So I am just going to put a little bit of hot glue there, wrap this around 3 times. And this is just going to give us a little texture that we can also see through to see our stamping. And then in that same spot where the glue is, I'm going to put another little stamped sentiment. I cut this one out with decorative edge, postage edge scissors. It's that Noel stamp. I'm just going to put a little bit more glue there so I can trap down all those little ends. And stick that there and then just trim off the excess yarn. And I mean, even if you left a little tail hanging out, it's not the end of the world. It actually, you wouldn't really be able to see it that much. There's not a lot of contrast here. You could go with a more contrasty yarn, but I thought that looked pretty, just that kind of little bit of texture there. I used the holographic powder when I stamped my little Noels, and I thought it was cute. You can also use the peace sign one. I think I have one of these that's got the peace sign on it. I think if you're going to do, I don't know, I think either you need to have it totally off. That half overlapping I don't think works very well. This one here where I overlapped both of the panels, I think that looks a little bit better than that. But just like experiment, play with it. You get a lot of chances, a lot of options to try different things when you're doing a batch of cards like this. So there's a way to deal with some dead space and to still have a sentiment on it. And I will have a sentiment that I glue on the inside of the cards too. And I've already printed that up on my printer. I'm just going to actually sit down at the coffee table with my husband and we can put those in as a last step. That way he can have part ownership in these cards, you know, get everybody involved. I mean, he could totally handle these steps too. It's just he's at work and I'm here slaving over these cards like a housewife. So these cards were a little boring because I never put fibers on them, so I thought they could benefit from having some sparkles, some crystals. And I've got this set of crystals from Mr. Pen, and it came with tweezers and also this really cool pencil that you could pick up the tweezers with. I mean the crystals with. So I'm just going to show you how I'm going to use this. I'm not using the tweezers though. So these are all clear, so you can actually color them if you want to. So I'm just going to grab one of the holly ones that I had here. Oh my gosh, what did I do with them? Oh, I'm losing everything here. Where'd they go? Oh, here they are. Okay, so take one of the little hollies there. I guess this looks fine on its own, but if you want to sparkle it up a little bit, just take a little bit of glue. I'm using the Gorilla Super Glue because it doesn't dry as fast as other super glue, and glue dots would work really well, but I didn't have any, so that's what I'm going to use. Then you just take your little pickup tool here, and can you see my little crystals there? You're just going to pick it up like this. You also have a few extra seconds there with the super glue. You just touch the pencil to the crystal, it picks it right up. Isn't that neat? Oops, shoot. So I guess if it stops getting sticky, you just sharpen it, and then it releases it, gets you back to the tacky stuff. I wonder if a regular colored pencil will work. I'm just going to grab a pencil and see if that would work. No, regular colored pencil isn't sticky enough. Thought I would try that. So after that dries fully, then you can take a marker and you can color the crystals if you want to. Any permanent marker is fine. Just be careful not to go hit the paper with it. A Sharpie will work really good for that. You can give it a couple layers if you want to. But there, then you've got custom little berries on your cards. And then for the snowmen, all I did was, I don't know, I might do smaller ones. I'm not sure. This one did have a fiber on it, but the other ones didn't have any, so I thought they were kind of dull looking. Or I could add little sparkles to some of the little, maybe I'll do that for one. Let's open some of these up. I'm afraid of spilling these, so let me get these also open really hard, probably so they don't like spill open where you don't want them to. I'm just gonna separate them a bit. I'll probably just use them up, but I also don't want to have a pain to sort through after if I don't use them up, a few of the smaller ones. All right, so let's do that. Let's put just a few random sparkles here and see how that looks. You could also use like glossy accents. It's a nice strong glue. I just don't have any right now. Or glue dots. Glue dots work great. Again, don't have any currently. And some of my bigger crystals down towards the bottom. Whenever you're designing, it's a good idea to do the bigger things first, then the medium-sized things and the small things. And you do have to make sure these are right side up if you want to pick them up with this tool here. Is that like another one? I think that, I really like the way that looks. Just that kind of little bit of glitter like within the stamp design. I think that's kind of pretty. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just do a variety of crystals on these cards that don't have fibers. I mean, that has fibers, but these other ones that don't have fibers, just to zhuzh them up a little bit. And that will be this batch of cards all done. So I know I mentioned in a video in the past that it bugged me that I had a bunch of white strips that were taller than these colored strips in my little strip storage. I know, it's crazy. So I decided I had one card base left and I had a bunch of strips of glittery paper left. And so I'm like, I'm going to make a card real quick because these penguins were really cute. And then I thought, oh, I could color some penguins and make one more card with this sentiment that I didn't get a chance to use because I thought it was so cute. But then I'm like, well, if I'm going to stamp one, I might as well stamp a few and then stamp all the little penguins from that set and then just color them out as I feel like it and then use my scan and cut to cut them out. And so then I'm like, well, I'm at it. I'm going to stamp out a bunch of these with that wider strip so that all my strips will match in my little strip container. I know. Am I the most neurotic card maker? Maybe so. So anyway, I'll have these for next year. I'll get a head start on next year. Then I'll completely forget about Christmas cards till Thanksgiving. But you want to see them all in their glory? Here they, look at that. Isn't that satisfying? This is so satisfying. 74 Christmas cards here. I'm very, very happy about this. So I'll show you each kind. They're all relatively the same. So I got the snowman with the sparkles and I did the sparkles around like that. And actually, I love this thing. This little pencil is awesome. These are great. What I do to open these containers, because they are hard to open, and there's like, I think 3 of the same size. Let's see, there's like 3 of those, 2 of those, 2 of those, 2 of those. I think it's because like the bigger ones need more space. This is probably the same amount of each kind, but I just take an acrylic block to kind of pop it open. But then I realized I could actually just leave them right in the container, so I don't have to dump them out and put them back, and then I just can pick them up like that. So do it that way, guys, if you buy these, because that's so much easier. This is very inexpensive. I will link it down below, but yeah, very cool. They're all clear, so you can color them with Copic if you want to make them match something else. So there's our snowman. Now let's see the next one we have. And I did have that one that I did just 3 sparkles there and had some fiber on there. I mean, you can do whatever you like better. Just to give you an idea. I mean, you have different things than I do. So our little Rudolph ones, I had them in 2 different colors. And I just did the simple 5 sparkles up at the top. And I thought those were really cute. I like the lighter one, actually, more than the darker one. And then the next one we have was our little candy cane, and I liked having the little overlapping postmark there, so that's what I did with that one. Same stamp, just a different way. You know, look at your stuff creatively. Essentially, this is all the same design, just done a little bit differently. And this one I actually did the same card. I don't like the yarn. Now that I'm looking back at these, I don't really like the fuzzy yarn. I think it's fine. Nobody that gets this card is going to see that card, so it doesn't matter. And I put the little thing over here because I thought that was just so much going on over there. There's a lot going on in this card. But, you know, it's all right. You know, you play, you experiment. You have so many different times to try it. And then I did that again with the white. The white I liked, I think, because it's a little more Christmassy. The red I thought was just a little too much. And then we have the our Christmas tree with the flag yarn that is almost just there for a little bit of texture. It doesn't really, and that looks neat and tidy on the inside because our gluing is behind the stamp there. Very simple. I have the little holographic stamping on everything. And I think it's just classy, pretty. I think it looks nice. And then the other Christmas tree that we did, I used 3 strands of the flag yarn and used a Noel, and I just cut it with postage scissors. I probably could have hit the edges with a little bit of ink or something to make it look more like a postage stamp, but it's not perfect, so I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to draw attention to it. I'll just leave it kind of like that. And I think it's really cute. Anyway, then we have our holly cards, which I'll show you with and without. I kept one without. I don't know. Actually, no, I had 2 that didn't have that I didn't do the sparkles on. I like them both ways. Actually, I think I might like them better without the sparkles, but you can decide. You can let me know what you think. And this one had some fiber on it. It had baker's twine, so I thought it probably didn't need the sparkle as much as the one that didn't. I love the teal and red together. I think that's a really pretty combination. So, and notice that my stamping, it was very even, so I didn't ink up the edges, even though like my stamp didn't quite go over to the corner. This one I did ink the edges because it wasn't perfect stamping. So if I didn't do the stamping perfectly, I inked the edges, and it works out just fine. And again, nobody's gonna care. For our little Santas here, if I had fiber, I just put the, actually I think the only ones I did these sparkles on were the reindeer and the snowmen. I thought this was enough, quite frankly. I don't really think it needs another embellishment, so I have some of those. And then what's the next kind? I did some with the red. I didn't like the red as much. I thought that was a little too heavy. It's still going to be cute. It's still fine. It just wasn't my favorite. And then, let's see, I did a lot of the Santa Clauses. Then I had these Santa Clauses, which again, pretty much the same layout, just with, I like the baker's twine on that. Oops. Got my little punchy thing. That was using the little notch punch, which I showed earlier in the video 5 years ago when we started this project. And yeah, that's it. Those are our different designs. Same design, just a couple different ways. And gosh, I'm happy with them. I think they're really cute. And 74 cards done in I don't know how many hours. It felt like a long time, but I think it's just because I spread it over like 3 or 4 days. But it was fun, and I hope you enjoyed going through the process with me. And if I do the penguin cards this year, I don't know. I'm probably not going to, but if I do, I might do a video on it. You can let me know if you're interested or not. Thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed these craft along card making videos. Where did I flung? I flung some paper across from. Anyway, and thank you so much for watching. Till next time, happy crafting.